Hi, welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee, and we're going to get right into it. I have some really interesting information that I want to impart. So you know that I love that taking the words that are in our text, our Torah, and I believe they really do relate accurately to the physics, the way the whole cosmos operates, seen and unseen. This is my presupposition. A lot of these words, while they have a plain meaning, and I've been through a lot of this, the pashat, the parts, they are used in many levels, and a lot of the levels give us absolutely precise, scientific, verifiable ways in which the universe operates that we are discovering today. So, I mean, you know, the most obvious one a lot of people understand is when it says the life of the flesh is in the blood. Well, we know that scientifically today. But another one I just came upon, this is sort of like this little revelation I had. My husband and I, we were listening to this guy on YouTube, and he was doing fabulous on doing this, connecting some of the physics. He was a scientist. The physics that is known today, true science, right, to the word. And I was tracking with him. But he was talking about the Higgs field. Okay. And the Higgs boson concept, all right, which in the 60s it was discovered. These guys won a Nobel Prize for this in theoretical physics. They came up with this, but I think they were spot on. And I tell you what I think this is referring to. So this was my revelation. This is just going to be my jumping off point. All right, Hebrew, as I'm really, really beginning to believe and understand, is the most insanely accurate classification system that the world could ever use. It's a language that is able to classify information from very complex, or let's start at the top, the word essence, the most sublime, and it is the word most, the simple, down to the most complex information. Nothing beats it like Hebrew. The fact that you have letters, vowels, two words that have 2-letter roots and 3-letter roots, and how they're combined. This is just the most unbelievable classification system. But so the words in Hebrew, and I'm going to get into a lot of this, are very precise. And that's why I say you got to really throw out your translations. Use them only in the sense of for key words. So today I was working the word field and the word earth. So once you get a verse, I got the word field, I go in and I see what the word is and how it's used, what its letters are, different things. Okay, so there's a very famous phrase that at the end of the age, the heavens are going to be rolled up like a scroll. And people just spend, you know, there's been countless commentaries through the centuries, like, what the heck could that mean? How could that have any literal application? It's got to be so allegorical, but it's absolutely the physics of it. I think is absolutely true. And it is. But what could the ancients be referring to? Because again, I absolutely believe they had as much, if not more so, accurate understanding of the physics of the universe and how it operated in all the dimensions. See, the one thing about the ancients, I will tell you, they were not stuck in the box that the Western mindset is, that the only reality out there is what we can see in the physical. They were way beyond that. They knew that there were other worlds, other realms where were angels, and there was the throne room valley. There's a very, I said, the populated cosmos. There are many dimensions to this thing. So in my opinion, the ancients were much more accurate and advanced than we are. Now, the word field is different from the word land. Now, I know a lot of the translations will flip them around. It'll use the word field and land and earth, and it gets so watered down, it loses a lot of its accurate classification. So there's a big difference between the word earth and the word land, or the word field. And this is what I want to say. So the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Now, the word earth does represent, in its literal to its most hidden, the hidden meanings that are in that word, that is everything. See, there is nothing that is made that is without God or that is not Elohim. All right, so this is what, it's Paul is telling us in Colossians. Everything that was made by him, for him, through him, and in him. So when you get down to the world of quote unquote physicality, the world of matter, or the world of what we can see and know, and this includes not only the earth, the seas, and really it's up to the first three heavens. That's sort of what biblically is in our classification for the word earth. All right. And it's talking about, in the physics, it's talking about the dry components, the chemicals, the dry ingredients, so to speak, that is in this, that gets mixed in to make up this whole levels of earth, because there are 4 levels to the earth, and this, we should know this. This is, our Bible's telling us when it talks about the four corners of the earth, or the 4 foundations. There's different, okay, I don't want to lose anybody in this, but my point, I'm trying to make my point. Field is, so the earth is a generic word, kind of, really, to talk about all of it together. And if you read Philo, he is expert at explaining in depth, systematically, and easy really to understand, the different levels of the earth and the difference between the seas and the water that's in the earth, and how that combines into make physical. Because we know that everything, even though, like, just take our bodies, we have a lot of dry ingredients in us. We're still, what is it, like 97% water. All right. So there's a lot of combinations of things that are going into materiality. And the scientists understand this. But again, it's babble. We're all using different words to actually explain the same phenomena. There's only one earth. We all live in it. 4 different levels, Okay, so the earth, I've established, is this whole world of physicality, matter, all right, condensed energy. The word field, though, is a little more subclassification coming down, where you're taking literally, so think about it, just and stick with the imagery here. So if you have the earth, well, we know the earth is made of continents, and then you kind of classify it down to the point. A field is this very specific portion of earth. I don't own the whole. Now, Adonai owns the whole earth. Okay. I might own a certain field. I might own my backyard. That's my quote unquote field. That's my piece of the earth, so to speak. But when the ancients talk about, use words like couch, this is something because it couch, bed, field, what was another one? It is really talking about a concept of a subdivision of the earth, a field. Now, this is where in the physics it gets really interesting to me. Oh, I hope you're still tracking. In the text tells that there are 2 kinds of fields. All right, so what I'm saying, a field is a portion. Okay, there are cultivated fields that are very productive, where things that are life-sustaining, fruit, and this is in our text, is what's telling us, trees and fruit trees and seed-bearing plants, all right, lush, abundant. These are all on the positive side when you have a field that is producing life, and life abundantly. And the ecosystem is in the cycle, feeding each other, the cycle of life, all right, versus a wild, an untamed field that is barren and desolate and is not producing life. And what they're telling you is a field can be, and this relates into, again, the spiritual realities that are feeding into that field, so to speak, that's in the earth, all right? And this is the contrast. So you have negative spiritual energy, so to speak, behind the veil, and we could create fallen angels, influences, mazal, that are producing death and destruction, nothing good, versus totally a productive field. Now, Israel is told that they will be a highly productive field in the earth. This is part of the story, that they will, new wine, grain, and oil will always be in abundance, not only physically, but spiritually in all of its levels. But this is the concept in when Yeshua uses the concept of the wheat and the tares. Wheat is an extremely life-sustaining grass that's all over the whole earth. So as the seed of Israel is spread out in the whole earth through the two houses, we're a life, this is where the salt of the earth, we are a life-giving, sustaining, where we are, if we're righteous and we're flourishing in our field where we're planted, everything around us is going to benefit. All right. Versus if we become a barren field, and if we are not having no life force from around us, we're living in a desert, because now both houses technically are two grades still in exile. So I'm trying to set up these contrasts. These are used allegorically, but they are literally portraying real physics of how this whole thing works. Blessings and curses, that's another way. And then you have the wheat and the tares. Tares are what is produced in an untamed wild garden, and they're good for nothing. And that is why he says he is going to gather them up and burn them, which brings me back to my point of the Higgs boson. All right. And why? See, that is what's going to be rolled up. That field, which is over us, this is what I believe it talks about. Satan, HaSatan has a veil covering the whole earth. It is this Higgs field. All right. Now, in science, just like in the word, the fields, there are many kinds of fields. See, because I had to look it up because the word field triggered me. And yes, there are many, science will tell you there's many, they will talk about a field, which to me, theoretically, we're talking about, once you get on the literal, okay, we're not talking about the field, the backyard, all right, we're talking now about the concept of using the field as a portion of earth, and things are happening in that field. There's gravitational fields. These things, they're important. Yahweh made many fields. He classified, he subdivided, he has many things going on in different fields. And many times they're layered. This is why there's four on top of each other. All right. You have what's called the Higgs field. You have a gravitational field. You have electromagnetic fields. You have quantum fields. So I hope you track me. This word can be taken from its biblical, extracted from its biblical context, and put into this whole concept of fields of energy. First, you'll have field energy and a field of mass. See, the energy that's fueling or beating down on or causing the invisible forces that are making up and beating down on, sustaining that field, will tell you its root source spiritually. So a barren field, obviously, Yahweh, our Yahweh, is the living El. Everything that emanates or is touched by him produces life, and life more abundantly. Everything that HaSatan touches or is biblically as barren, even though, and this is where you have to use discernment, because HaSatan is a master of, and this is the concept of the matrix, of making you think it's full of life-giving energy, but this is what our texts are telling. It's worthless. It's not really life-producing, not in the next life and the life to come, that's for sure. It's a very temporary blip on the radar. Now, why I equate this to the Higgs field? There's another concept, and I've been over this a lot. It's something you really need to master this philosophical concept, in other words, of the horse and the rider, or so many ways, because this is the fundamental mind understanding you need to grasp some of the deeper things in the Torah, is that there is always a body and there's a soul. There's always the container and there's always the force that fills the container and animates it. And I've been over this a lot in my videos. And there are so many different ways in which the text uses allegorical language to explain it, and one of them is the horse and the rider. But it is this principle, because it's true biblically, we can find it in the Higgs boson theory. All right. The Higgs is a field of energy. That's where it's called the Higgs field. It's a field of energy. All right. The boson is like the particle that is in the field that's interacting. It's all about this, the interaction between the Higgs and the boson. And what it is, this is what they say, it is giving mass to an object. And this is what's called the Higgs effect. Well, that's exactly what HaSatan, that is exactly his game. We are stuck down here as spiritual beings in an endless cycle of physicality. So his field that he cannot is in this field of energy that gives mass to objects. Now, that in and of itself is necessary for much of life. Much of life is made to manifest in the lower physical planes for the abundance and the life sustainingness of the higher forms. We are Adamites, this is the point, I'm going to go into this. We are made in the image of Elohim. We have the breath. We are supposed to function, and this was our destiny before the fall. This is where we are going back to. We operate on the highest levels. The capability is in our wiring because of the breath program, so to speak. I use the computer. So that we are not supposed to only be able to function in this world of mass and physicality. All right, and this is the whole point of the new birth and of ascending, of trying to get out of this matrix through faith to be able to live on a higher plane. And all of this, because this is where we're going to get to, and we're going to do the miracle signs and wonders are coming from there. That's the works that Yeshua said, the works that I do shall you do also. The only way we're going to do it, we got to get out of this Higgs boson field where what we see is what we think is the only possible reality. All right, it's all a charade. It's a matrix. So I just think that that's what's going to be rolled up, because all that energy is what's the problem? That's problem energy. So that's my science lesson for today. But I want to just quickly, let me see, screen share something, because how do I say this? The fact of these different fields, all right, within, and the earth, we know, has physical fields, but that's just the Peshat level, the literal level. But then behind that, we know that there are fields, technically keep the same concept, in other dimensions, the invisible realms. See, so that's why when I say gravitational field, electromagnetic, you can't see those things, but we can see the effect, same principle. While there's a literal field out there, absolutely, there is an earth plane, grass is growing in a field. It always goes deeper and deeper into more and more supernal or hidden or behind the veil or spiritual realities. So that HaSatan is this field. This is he has authority over it. It's his field. You know, this is when he was created. Let me see, just go back to my screen share here. Just let me quickly. This is a quote from Ezekiel. I didn't copy down it's very famous. You can look it up. where Ezekiel is talking about, and we know the context. Now he is talking about King of Tyre, but King of Tyre is an archetype for HaSatan. Now this is a deeper level meaning, but I think most people are up to speed on this. So he says, thus says the Yahweh Elohim, talking, think of this, he's talking to Lucifer. Now let me say this, because of the different concept of fields. This is where I believe we can have this marriage, so to speak, of science truly explaining the properties that are real, the law, the Torah laws of Elohim that make the universe run, and the allegorical language that is in our text. All right. So that says the Lord Yahweh Elohim, you had the seal, you being King of Tyre, or you, HaSatan, had this. Oh, this is what I was going to say. Fields. This is very important to understand. HaSatan, Lucifer, HaSatan, or the serpent, the Nakash that was in the garden, let's say, and the evil inclination are all the same thing. All right. This is something that's really important to understand. It parallels, let's just say, because I'm going to ultimately do a complete parallel rundown between Lucifer and Mashiach. All right. The two really most prominent beings in the universe, and there is definitely a war going on between the two, so to speak, for the hearts, the souls, the minds, and the bodies of men. All of the different fields that the influence of these highly supernal entities have influence over. All right. And I'm using Yahweh, Yahweh Vavhe, as the son of the Father, the Mashiach, okay, versus Lucifer. Set the stage. So he had the seal of perfection. He was full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Before he fell, he was a creature, because he's a created being, full of all of the perfection, the best of what Elohim had, the fields, the forces, whatever, the raw materials, whatever word you need to paint in your picture, right? Whatever words will paint in your mind an accurate picture of what we're talking about. Because that's it. The evil inclination, that's a force that functions in our mind. The war is in the mind. How does that feel, those thoughts that come at us? First of all, we know that there's a literal, I mean, there was a Nakash. We're talking about a spiritual being here. And we know that Lucifer is a real entity, all right? But they're really all one and the same. Just like I have a body, I have a soul, and I have a spirit. They're all the same. I mean, it's all part of the one package deal, but it operates, different programs are operating in different fields. I hope that's what I'm trying, that makes sense. So he was in the Garden of Eden, the Garden of El. This is, and I can't unpack, this is very apocryphal, but I understand these words are telling us these Eden is the highest level of the presence of Yahweh Elohim. You know, he was in Eden. This was his garden that he originally planted, all right? He planted a choice garden in his cosmos, all right? Every precious stone was his covering. We're talking about the ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the lapis. See, these stones are related to colors. Colors are related to and this is where I said you got to master the concept of the tree of life, the emanations, the flows, the aspects of Elohim that are operating all the time, all around us. This is the point. And this is why the Shema is the most important prayer that Israel says on a daily basis. And you should be saying it. I'm saying it because it's a concept of keeping it all straight and unified. Shema Israel, hear, O Israel, get this straight. Adonai Elohino, Adonai, Eloheinu, who we're talking about, the Lord God, Adonai Echad, the Lord is one. It can never lose sight of that fact. Even though we're talking about different aspects, even though I might start talking about my hand and what my hand just made, my hand is part of my body. It's a unity. There's no separation here. I'm not talking polytheism. These are, you know, touch on these are things that really are important to understand as we're trying to get down to the deeper meat, you know, the chew the meat and drink the strong wine. So colors, what's really being represented, okay, you might have a stone in the physical. You might actually find a stone in your field, right? Very valuable. But the color of it, this is talking about the energy. Then now we're starting to get into coding. That's why I say Hebrew is an insanely great way to classify linearly information. So you can take the stone in the physical, it has a color. That color relates to one of the Sephiroth, one of the aspects of Elohim. I'm going to be uploading another YouTube today, if you want to listen to it, of a sermon I did. I was preaching yesterday on Shabbat, and I unpacked the word red or ruddy. David was a ruddy youth and what that means. And we're not talking, do listen to it because I don't want to get into it, how that word is used and how it's so important that we understand the different levels so we don't become fundamentalist and we don't end up being racist, which is one of the problems. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. When you don't understand how these words, and to be able to go up and down Jacob's ladder with this understanding. Okay, so what I wanted to say is this description of HaSatan, Lucifer, completely tracks scientifically, truly, of what we can know about this being and the fact that he was so highly anointed up. He could operate in all of these different fields, gravitational, electromagnetic, and the Higgs field, which is really, this gets into some really deep stuff where he had, oh, I just don't. He has, that is his primary domain, is physicality. All right. You are the anointed cherub who covers, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of Elohim. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire. See, these translations are misleading. This is why, this is the whole point of the Kabbalah. This is the whole point of the tradition, the keys to the kingdom that was kept alive so you could unencrypt the way these words are used. All right. Fire represents to the left side, the fiery angels. I mean, there's just so much. You were blameless in all your ways from the day you were created until righteousness was found in you. So this is I mean, there's just so much apocryphal understanding in that. But what I just wanted to show you, these words, when they're understood properly, fully in their parts, and I've been through this from the literal all the way into the Sud level of understanding the history mystery, you can totally flush out all the mysteries. It's pretty amazing. So let me go back to this. That was just sort of a rabbit trail. What I really want to talk about today, stay with me. I want to talk about, and approaching it from another angle, the dialectic construct that is in place, that is playing out between HaSatan and Mashiach. All right, because our texts are full of it, and let's understand this stuff on a deeper level. Really amazing. So I was working the word red. So like I said, and I did a sermon yesterday, and I was talking about David, the Rudy, because I don't think I'm saying it right. Ruddy youth, okay? But it's the word red. Now, let me just lay one more foundation. The Hebrew, like I said, I believe it is the language of heaven. I believe it is the DNA. The letters are literally the DNA of the universe. They're combinations. But within the concept of the letters and the vowels of the Hebrew, and this will help us to understand why it was written, quote unquote, without vowel points, and why the priests were entrusted with supplying the vowel points for translation, and why the vowels are kind of outside the letters. So it's a whole theological concept that we have to have. So Hebrew letters, I say, are male and female. Now, the concept of male and female in the Godhead is something being unpacked today, but you might as well just do the research because it's there, it's legitimate. There's, again, many levels of usage and meaning, but it doesn't do anybody any good to be a fundamentalist and to deny what is hidden in plain sight. So the letters are male and female, but the vowel points, and I think that there are 7 vowels points, and I believe that's accurate, and there's 22 letters. You know, there's 22 letters and there's 7 vowel points. And the vowel points are male and female. Now, this is what is going on. The letters, again, I said, this is why I preface this. You have to understand the concept of the horse and the rider, the garment, the vessel, and what fills it. Okay, and I've done other even physics YouTubes on this where it talks about matter, physicality, and forces, which is what I just was talking all about. There is a field, there's a world of matter, but there are many, behind it, there are many other fields that influence it. So this is the concept of the horse and the rider. The horse is the physical, or it is the object, all right, of what is being portrayed in the symbology, all right, so a horse. But it is the vowels that fill it in this and give it its animation, its meaning. So in other words, let me try this again. The letters are like the body. The letters form the body, the vessel, the container, the concept, the symbol that you mean. So I got a body, I got a physicality. That's the whole point. But it is my spirit, it is my soul. That program, which is invisible, which is running, which is animating my body and make it do what my mind is telling it to do. So, and there's male and there's female, because this is the principle. And then I did this in my YouTube last week. The fundamental archetypal principle that Yahweh Elohim set up for the whole cosmos to run on, soup to nuts, visible and invisible, is male and female, a binary system of combination. That's why, you know, I hate to say this, but one of the crude phrases in the garden, Yahweh made Adam and Eve. He didn't make Adam and Steve. This is, see, so because we don't have these deep, fundamental, archetypal seals of Elohim, we don't, you know, we lose our mooring, we get knocked off our foundation too quick. So you always have male and female in combination. All right, so that's why letters, they'll tell you every word, they'll tell you if it's a male word or a female word, they'll tell you if each letter is assigned male and female in each vowel point, because it's all about combinations. All right, now, so I've established this concept that the vowels are what actually fill the word and give it its meaning or its animation, okay? Another way to say this is that the vowel points, and this comes out all of the writings of the House of Judah. You can get this information is in the Kabbalah, it's in the Mishnah, it's in our Torah text if we understood the way the words are used. But another one is like vowel points are called sparks. They're called stars. They operate like stars. in that the stars illuminate the firmament. All right. You have stars in the sky that give light and give to the firmament. Vowels give the letters their illumination. All right. Because you can have a bunch of letters, but if you don't have vowel points attached to it, you don't know really what it's referencing. All right. Now, with laying that whole foundation, let me go to this. Because I was working this word red, and I had such a revelation. I'm going, oh my gosh, Father, I never saw this. It really is between the letters and the vowels. I was working the word red, which is you would ruddy. And in your Strongs, there are about 7 words in a row that have the exact same letters. All right. The only difference is the vowel points. Honestly, I could probably write a whole book about this, and whole books have been written. You'd be unbelievable. Okay, and this is the same principle when he's talking about how, because just get a boat, which is like a vessel. Think of a boat would be the vessel, would be the body, is steered by such a little thing as a rudder. How these little vowel points can make all the difference in the word, in the direction of that word, where it goes, its destination, what it means. All right. So the word ruddy is from Strong's 132, admoni, but it comes from root words. From Strong's 119 up until 124, it is a word, it is all these words that have the exact same letters, but different vowel points. And there is so much information, and packed into that little chunk of words is basically the whole story of the bloodlines, supernally from Lucifer, the high on down, all the information we need of what would be known as the 2 trees in the garden and all of the ramifications. Who knew? So let me start here. The word, because the word ruddy is used 3 times, its root word is, and this is why the text, the mysteries are really hidden in plain sight. Yahweh's not really trying to hide them. They're there in plain sight. You just have to build precept on precept until your eyes, you begin to get spiritual sight, and you begin to see this stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I never saw that before, all right? So ruddy is the root word of 119, which is Adam, but it's A-D-O-M, all right? Well, let me put it this way. All of these words are made up of 3. 3 is a root. This is a root, but in is a root word. The root word has 3 letters. It's all used, all of these. But as we know, like I was saying, it is, if you want to find out the root system of what you're seeing, this is what Yashua said when he said, you can judge a tree by its fruit. So if you want to know, and trees refer to people, let's just use it on that level, which is absolutely accurate biblically. If you want to know what kind of person, what root system, like are they a wheat or are they a tare? Do they come from the father of lights, or are they, a Luciferian? You look at the fruit, which will tell you what its root system is that is producing that fruit. I mean, it's not rocket science, and it's absolutely a fact. That's how it works. So the 3-letter root that makes up this word is an aleph, a dalet, and a mem, a closed mem. At the end of the word, it's a closed mem, which is so interesting because an aleph, we know, is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's aleph is it's the word usually referred of Elohim. He is the beginning. The aleph and the Tav. So he is the beginning, he is the end. This is Aleph. And I've just dissected this word. It's a great word because it's a slash and it's got a yod at the top and a yod coming off a tail at the bottom. And it's really describing, the word is a picture, pictograph is the heavens and the earth and the firmament in between. It's Yavhe Vavhe in a nutshell. Its grammatica is 26, which is the same grammatica as the word Yavhe Vavhe. It's not an accident. All right. So you have an Aleph, a Dalet, and a Mem. So 119 is a word that means red, and it is the word A-D-O-M. Okay, the vowel O. This is what, so it's telling you because of the O that we're pronouncing or we're filling Aleph, Dalet, Mem with an O, making it Adam. The next word is 120, and there is a whole world here. We have our two bloodlines, really, this. In the word 120, everybody should know that, Strong's 120, it's the word Adam, A-D-A-M. Here we have the Adamites, those that are born in the image and likeness of Elohim. When you study it, the ADOM, red, is not. That is just one side. And I'll get into this. That is just those root system is strictly coming from the left side only. This is what we're getting to. Adam, Strong's 120, ADAM. Then you have the next word is Strong's 121, which is the word ADAM again, but here it's used as a proper name. So it's this, now we're talking about the first parent, so to speak, Adam. Before we were talking about the generic term of all the offspring, the mankind, the man-ish kind. Again, different field, different kinds of, this is of the ADAM. All right, all in the vowel points. Same letters, same thing here. 123 is the word Edom, E-D-O-M. All right, so Aleph is never pronounced. Yeah, people should know that that's always a silent letter, but it's always present. So the earth is, everything belongs to the Lord. This is all his, I don't want to get to it. Okay, so Edom, which is 123, which is from the root of 122, which is A-D-O-M. So it's an O. So we are making a big distinction here. We are filling these vessels, these containers, with different root systems. That is what is going on. Who knew? This is the oral Torah in absolute manifestation before you. Because it is only by having the keys, by understanding the spiritual realms, that the priests, that they knew in context what was being referred to. Because it is an encrypted code. You don't want the profane to know per se. This is the knowledge for the wise. All right. So Edom, which is, we get the word Esau, you get the Edomite. It all stems from this because Esau is Edom, his territory, his field was called Edom, and the people in that field morphed and became biblically known as Edomites. Edomites is a code word. It has always been used as the enemies, or the true, the enemies of Adam, the Adamites, the Israelites, the people of Elohim. So really, there you have the wheat and the tares. You have those, because, and let me just tell you this. This is why you have to, church, we have to, or elect, we have to grow up and eat, digest, be able to, the meat, because you're going to think, people are going to think that this word is coded and only means the Muslims, because genetically there was a people group, Esau. See, so there is a literal level of a people group on the planet descended from Esau who were red. Let me just say, but that's not, when we get down to the level of the hidden, that word was used now as a code word to talk about people who are tares who are coming from a root system that is not of their father. When Yashua looked at certain people and by their fruit he could judge, he said, you are of your father, the devil. See, you have to understand. So we cannot allow people to say that Edomites, people today genetically who might be over in the lands who are coming from, as evil. That's, yes, there are probably evil people in that mix, because it says the wheat and the tares are growing together. They're all been planted in one big mix. But you don't genocide a people group, because not right now. This is not the point. We need to understand this word Edomite, because the word Edomite is used many times in the writings as a code word for the bloodline of the serpent. All right. And it's been used, like at the time of Yeshua, at the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the word was used, they used the Kittim, because this talks about the beast kings, they have been able to transmit the information of the seed of the serpent, the Canaanite bloodline, how it was going to morph into different Gentile nations who were going to give power and authority over Israel in her times of exile. That's why they could look at the Roman occupation and they would call them Edomites, even though genetically they're not technically Edomites. I hope I'm making this really clear, because it's a code word. And they're also called the Kittim, because the Kittim was another name, coast of the west of Rome. All right. But today, and this is just one of the fields. See, this is one of the fields that's in Babylon. Babylon is a code word for the overarching forces of evil that function in the world. So these words all relate to each other. They have meanings. But my last point I want to say, oh my gosh, is 124, another Strong's word, Odem, O-D-E-M, which is the word for ruby, which is what I was showing you in why I pulled up Ezekiel when it talks about the king of Tyre, because he was made up of, part of his whole makeup was, as it's the translation says, a ruby, but it's telling you of red. Red is a word that is associated with the left side. All right. So before he imperfection, or he was marred, he was a beautiful creature made up of the right side and the left side and all the you know, the beauty of Elohim. All right, like I said, but then he lost his, and now we're going to get into this. Now that I have made the case for encoded in the words, because of the vowels, the deeper understandings of what these words are telling us, these now 3-letter roots have been filled with meaning and differentiation, classification. We can know, we can keep straight, if you have this under, who we're talking about. So you have Adam, A-D-A-M, the righteous bloodline. You have A-D-O-M, which would be the unrighteous bloodline, those who do not want to come under Torah, which is really what Cain's whole issue was, that he had to murder, but he didn't want to come under Torah and live according to the laws of Elohim in this field, this Eretz where he found himself born into. All right, not by anything he personally did, you know, his parents sinned. But here we go. This is that every generation, but he had a choice. All right, he could have, this is what Yahweh said, look, why didn't you ask me for help to overcome the preponderance of evil inclination that you had in you because of your parentage? This is why everyone's going to be without excuse, because Yahweh is always there. He is our Oser. He is our helper. So I hope I really flushed that out. So we have here the 2 bloodlines coming down and out through the ages to us, how the words are coded and understood. Because what it has set up here, now, because there were 2, this is the point, 2 trees in the garden. This is another way that this whole storyline has been coded and classified in the text. All right. You have basically, everyone has a supernal root system. I've established this, you know, say the tree of life. Our souls come from somewhere. All right. And, you know, seriously, due to, well, there's so much back to it. I'm not even going to go. There are supernal, our souls are supernal, and there are holy souls and there are evil souls. Obviously, it's not rocket science. Look at the fruit in the world today. Okay, some people do really, really horrendous things. And you basically have three classifications of souls. You have souls that are really pure and holy, tzaddiks. You have totally and known Luciferian evil souls that manifest terrible fruit in the world. And then you have basically what's in the middle. All of these in the valley of indecision, partly good, partly bad. Okay, they're just a big mixed bag of, and this is the whole point. This is what is packed into, encoded into the words on its deeper archetypal meaning of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the three boys that repopulated the whole earth after the flood. This is what is so important. They're not talking about, and this is where we get it wrong. We stick only with a literal understanding. And so we will say that, oh, Ham went south, he became the black people, and so they're cursed. I mean, people, you are absolutely wrong and out of your league. Oh, Shem or white, you know, or even they flip it around. You have the whole where, you know, the black people, that Egypt, the Cushite were black, you know, whatever. That is completely not what is being said in these words, in they're being filled with their supernal meaning. All right, it's talking about three levels of soul. In Enoch, this gets from Enoch because Enoch confirms this. All right, so because at the valley of decision, where most people are, Japheth, this is the point. That's why Joshua said, choose you this day who you will serve. Get off the fence, get in one side or the other. All right, and this is ultimately where everyone is going to you have to make a decision. And this gets into so much of the deep philosophy of things, but I can't go there. What I want to just kind of wrap up here as a contrast of the dialectic that was set in place between these two bloodlines, the wheat and the tares. One is holy, one is evil. And we understand that Satan, because he fell, because when iniquity was found in him and of his own free will, he did not want to keep Torah. And I want to go into, this is a very interesting mystery that in bits and pieces is all over the writings. But this relates to the larger concept. There's a kind of the firstborn. And this is a story. The concept of the firstborn gets played out in almost every generation in so many of our Bible stories. And what they're doing is playing out again the archetypal, which is the first imprint, the first seal, or the first occurrence. So Satan, you can make the case, and this is in the text, that he was a cherub of the second day, that he was there in the beginning in the Garden of Eden, in Eden, as this thing was coming down into manifestation, into physicality. All right, he was the firstborn. This can be demonstrated from many of the texts. Yashua, or Mashiach, this kind of, and this is the rub. Let me just see if I can do this. When Adam was made on the 6th day, what it's telling you, these are different epochs, ages, not literal 24-hour days. Oh my gosh. And all the angels were told now, everything had come, look what I've just kind of created now, Adam, and you're all to come and serve him now. This is, and basically the reason for this, that Adam was made on the sixth day, was because everything that Elohim needed to kind of put into Adam to make him the kind of vehicle, so to speak, that could rule and reign over all the other living beings and creatures, was that now everything had been made. And he breathed into, so it's sort of like a circle, after everything was made. And then the last thing he did was he breathed into this Adamic vessel, the breath, his essence of life. So that he kind of like sealed the deal. The final seal of perfection was put over Adam when he was made in the image and likeness of Elohim, was when Elohim breathed into him. Breath, I've been through this a lot of times. You understand these words are highly specifically coded. Ruach, spirit, and breath are different. I know the translations are all over the place because they don't have the understanding. Okay. I'm just going to do a rabbit trail. I'm going to stay disciplined. So if Mashiach, Yahweh, truly was only manifested, and I believe, oh, this gets so deep, after Lucifer, then technically Lucifer's the firstborn, but he loses. This is the whole point. If you study out the firstborn, which is, the firstborn is a seal that Yahweh places on who in every generation receives the spiritual blessing, the material blessing, the recognition as the high priest, as the carrier and the progenitor through their of the work of Elohim moving forward. It's such a big topic. I don't know if 2 sentences can sum it all up. Because you will have in your text, if you read 90% of the time, the firstborn biologically is not the one who inherits the blessings, the berakah and the bekara of the firstborn. It's another son. This is the whole point with David. David was, I think he was the seventh. I think seventh son of Jesse. Well, he was obviously not the firstborn. So what I'm going to do is run through a couple of these stories to reiterate that this is an archetype that is playing out over and over again. But as terms of 2 trees, so let's just do this. We have a holy bloodline. We have an evil bloodline. All right. We have Adam with an A and Adam with an O in the vowel points. You have the whole concept of the left and the right side of Elohim. Now that's a whole, and each one of these would take. But through these bloodlines, you have Jacob, you have David. If you track out the righteous bloodline, you have these pivotal figures. And before Moshe, a lot of them were just, you had Job, who's a righteous, he comes from the line of Esau, the line of Ishmael, but he's righteous. You have Enoch, you have Noah, you have Shem. These are just sort of generic righteous bloodline people out there who make it into the Bible, so to speak, because they are righteous. By their actions, you will know them by their fruit. Their deeds and their actions, they are proving and are telling us of their supernal root system. But on the same side, you have Esau. This is the whole, so let's just go, you have Jacob and Esau in the story. Esau is the firstborn. But it is Jacob that inherits the birthright blessing. All right. Now, there were 3 words I told you first start out, because the whole thing started out because I was trying to research the word red. David was called ruddy. That's used 3 times. Samuel calls David ruddy. The Philistine, the giant, calls David ruddy. All right. But the 3rd time it's used is in the text. Esau, when he comes out of the womb, is called ruddy, red. All right. So yeah, so there's a meeting again, another sign, another flag saying there's a dialectic is being set up here between you have Ruddy used for an Esau, the father of the quote unquote Edomites, and the word morphs into those who are at war with Elohim, and David and others that are ruddy but are not at war. So this dialectic is so interestingly interwoven in the text. But you have another way that this whole story is told. See, what I'm beginning to understand, it's the same story. Oh my gosh, but it is being told in a million different word plays. Okay, so we just used the tree of the knowledge. Just go back to the, so yeah, Mashiach is the tree of life. Okay, he's the living out. He's the tree of life. All right. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of good and evil is Lucifer. Okay, and he's using him to filling the Nakash, the serpent. They're in tandem. So that's where you have, this is what we're telling the same thing. We're just using totally different word pictures, word symbols. Another one that comes down to us is the story of Rahab and Leviathan. Now, that's a very obscure one, and people, because a lot of people are reading the extra biblical text, it's on the radar, but most people have never had, like, what the heck are these things? This is where it gets even deeper, and they're like, oh, I should do a whole teaching on this. But what I want to tell you right now, on the 5th day, Elohim made 2 great sea creatures. Okay? And what that is, if you look at that word, or see, and see, that's a translation, which is so, the translation is ridiculous. The word is actually 2 great serpents. And in the root word, I've touched on this before, is the root word tan, T-A-N. And actually, I should look this up, and I will, to see if the vowels change depending on which side of the storyline, bloodline we're talking about. We know Leviathan is another archetype or another code word for Lucifer. All right. But Rahab is a code word for Mashiach, serpent. See, they're both, see, I don't want to say serpents, but this is, before you freak out at me, this is biblically, the words are used this way biblically, because think of Moses in the wilderness when the people were sick and they needed to be healed, and he put a serpent on a stick, so to speak, and he lifted up and he told the people, look on this serpent and you will be healed. Okay. And what to tell you, a serpent is another word. I think the word cherubim, I have to check. They're both divine entities. What it's telling you, these great serpents, dragons. These are highly primordial, spiritual, and I don't even want to say the word angel. They're so far above that. Supernal entities. All right. But this is what's Rahab and Leviathan. Rahab, it says, will be killed and will be used as food to feed the land creatures. I think I have that right, how it talks about it in Enoch. But isn't that interesting? Because if that really is a typology of Yashua, of Mashiach, that's exactly what happened. He said, I'm the bread of life, and I'm going to lay down my life. And, you know, his flesh, his life, became the bread. We're all now eat of the bread of life. So these things are tracking for a reason, because the people who wrote our text had all this backdoor, or, you know, information that we have lost. See, this is what's called to lose the keys to the kingdom. And this is the other one I just said, the serpent and Mashiach, they're both serpents. All right, this is the point. They both have their root system in highly supernal realms of Elohim. All right, and this in the snake. This is where, okay, so a serpent, you get the word snake. you know, and these are such bad translations, and we could clean up all these translations if we could just kind of latch onto the essence of the word, because a word is a name which will tell you the essence, the makeup of the object or the entity that you're talking about. So again, this whole storyline comes down in it's morphed into on the two sides between Lucifer and Lilith. Remember I told you the words are male and female, the binary system, Elohim and the Godhead is male and female, Chokmah and Bina. There's a, this is a fact, you can, you know, we have a mother, and I'm not talking, we have to get away from thinking this in terms of gender with physical body, but we are talking about a binary system of combination, but we are talking about a very holy and supernal kind. We do have a heavenly mother and a heavenly father, all right? But the flip side is those of the seed of the serpent also have a quote unquote heavenly father and a mother, and it's coded in our text as Lucifer and Lilith. Now Lilith is another whole word that needs to get unpacked. Or you have Adam and Eve. Our parents are Adam and Eve. If you are of the Father in heaven, all right? Now this storyline of the firstborn and a contrast between is played out, and I'll just give you over and over again, between Isaac and Ishmael. This is the point, two bloodlines. Isaac, all right, so Abraham, the father of all the nations, so to speak, that are of the seed of the father coming through Abraham, they go through Isaac. This is what it's telling us, by faith, by choice, by free will action. Torah, you either come through the gate, through Isaac, or through Ishmael. All right, and they're telling you the same truths. Let me just say this, go back to the word we're talking about here, which is all stemming from, which is the word Adam. Aleph, Dalet, and Mem. What's really interesting is the word Dalet is like, one of the words is it's a gate. It's an entrance. See, so you think of a flow, a flux, an emanation, it goes through a gate. So what is your gate? And Mem is water, which this is, because we're talking about flows, emanations, we're talking about influence, mazal. All right, what is your mazal? What influences you? You know, are you under the tutelage of your father, your holy father, or the God of this world? So in Isaac and in Ishmael, it was clear the father said, no, Isaac is the one who's going to inherit the birthright promises, and it's going to go through him and not through Ishmael. But it was, again, demonstrated through the fruit of their lives. It's not like that Yahweh is doing this arbitrarily. He knows the end from the beginning. Well, let's just look at it. It's going to go through Isaac, because I know this kid's going to produce of his own free will. It's going to serve me. Ishmael is not. It's the same story played out between Jacob and Esau. The promises birth, it goes through Jacob. The righteous remnant goes through Jacob, who obeyed. Esau was a wild man. This is what he was a red man. And I guess listen to the sermon I did yesterday, which will flesh out a little more of the word red and how it relates to all this, because I don't want to go into that. But Esau, again, Rudy, red, but he was strictly red from the left side. All right, and that in and of itself, I explain more, and you'll just have to go and find that. You have, again, we're back into the story of the firstborn, the promises, and this is where it gets really interesting. The birthright promises that go next through, they go up to Abraham, they go through Isaac, they go through Joseph. They get split up between Joseph and Judah, who become the designated firstborns in the concept of the 12 sons. Reuben was the firstborn, but Reuben's actions when he slept with his father's concubine proved that he was not, he was getting his mazal, his influence. He was making his choices, obviously from the wrong father, the wrong side. So he disqualified himself for receiving the blessings of the firstborn. And again, this is really played out in the story of, again, Cain and Abel. Cain, technically the firstborn in the story, murders his brother Abel because he's not going to be, by choice, righteous. All right, it's all free will choice in this thing. But again, it follows the typology. Nothing is broken here. The archetype remains the same. Cain, the firstborn, does not inherit the blessings or the promises. It goes to Abel. He kills Abel. What happens? They were told specifically that after 130 years, Adam and Eve came together. They had a son, again, made in the image of likeness of Elohim, Seth. And that picks up again and brings forward the righteous bloodline. So people totally get it, understood it. Abraham and Haran. Now, Abraham was not the firstborn in his family. There were 3 brothers. And I believe you can make he's the middle brother. But again, here, Haran, which I believe was the firstborn son, did not inherit the promises or the birthright blessings. They went to Abraham. But Haran's story is sort of interesting because here, the story of Haran gives you this little nuance thing that this is a total JPEth move. the indifferent, those who are in the middle. He went into the fire according to the extra biblical text storylines. He went into the same fire that Abraham did when Nimrod heated up the furnace 7 times, all this stuff, because he went in with Abraham. And because he didn't want to totally deny Adonai Elohim, but he was scared of Nimrod, but he went into the fire, but he hedged his bets. He said, look, I'll go in with Abraham, and if God saves Abraham, he'll save me. And so he was taking a chance. He wasn't fully persuaded in his own mind. He wasn't doing this because he was fully persuaded. And whether I live or die, I'm going to serve Elohim. He went in hedging his bets, and he was burned up. And yet Abraham came out of the fire unscathed. So I'll tell you what, Japheth, you better make a decision. What Joshua said then and says to the children of Israel, choose you this day. Get off the fence. Choose you this day who you're going to serve. And then the last one I have is the story of Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh was technically the firstborn, but when Jacob crossed his hands and gave the birthright blessings, they went to Ephraim, who was not technically the firstborn, but he was the inheritor, because obviously Elohim must have seen that his actions were going to be more righteous. So I'm just, again, building the case for the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, which are in our text. They're in the words. The job of the elect in this last days generation is to get it straight, and tell the world, snatch as many people as we can out of the fire of the last judgment. And that's something that I'll get to unpacking too. So, hey, I hope that blessed you. Shalom. Choose you this day. I hope you've chosen Yashua HaMashiach. There's no other name under heaven given whereby men can be saved. Shalom.